if you're recording modern rock, pop, metal, pop punk, or basically anything with a drum kit at all, you do not want your drums to sound soft and weak. Again, I'm Jordan Valeriote here on behalf of Recording Revolution, and in this video, I'm going to show you a technique that I use in every single one of my mixes to get that hard-hitting, intense, punchy drum sound. So let's dive right into a session, and I'll show you how I add this type of impact and punch to the drums using what I call the crush bus technique. So here's a song I remixed for the band Emery, and I'll just play a few seconds here for you.
I wanna dance in the summer. You've always been the believer. I'm always left to wonder. The water's rushing so fast, I think it will take us under.
Cool, so you might have heard of parallel compression before, but if your drums are not sounding as punchy and as slamming as you want, then keep watching this because there's an important distinction. So let's zoom in on the drums here. So I'll just solo the drums here when they kick in. Now this is just, my regular drum mix. Of course, there's a lot of stuff happening on the individual tracks, and that's just going to my drum bus here. Super light compression though, and a little bit of saturation. And it's okay in the song.
You've always been the believer. I'm always left.
But it's missing a little bit of oomph, like that extra size and impact. So, like I said, parallel compression, typically people will do this, and what you'll do is you'll just duplicate your drum bus, right? So let's just duplicate our drum bus here. So there it is. Now let's throw on some heavy compression. Let's see, I really like the SSL compressor for this. And if you go to this pumping preset, it's perfect. Slow attack, you want a slower attack. This is 30 milliseconds. This lets the transient through before it clamps down, and then a fast release. So let's check this out. Of course, the point is that you really slam this and get tons of compression and then mix that back in. There's the standard parallel compression bus. Now let's go ahead and mix that in with the regular drum bus. Now we're definitely adding a lot of punch to the drums, but we're also getting stuff we don't want. Listen to the washiness of the cymbals. Like after this heavy compression, the cymbals are almost like louder than the kit, and that's just kind of like smearing everything for me. Just don't really like what it's doing to the cymbals there. So what we're gonna do instead is actually not just use the exact same drum bus and just duplicate it and then compress one heavy and one not. I'm actually going to create an entirely separate bus, like an entirely customized mix for this parallel compression bus. So what we do here is you're gonna create a send from your drums. So I'm just gonna select all my drums here, and here, let me just wipe this out and we'll do it again, all right? So let's do this. Let's send it to any bus. Usually I have a bus called Crush. There it is. All right, and then we're just going to set these all to 0. It's going to basically mimic the drum mix that we have here. So now let's check this out. Let's change the input of our Crush bus to this new bus, and we'll just listen to that on its own. Turn off our reverbs. So as you can hear, same thing. We got tons of cymbals. So now here's where we are going to start customizing this mix. So right away, we want to bring down the overheads, the cymbals in this crush bus. Let me just pause my automation so that we don't get anything crazy there. You could just mute the overhead track if you wanted. I'll keep a little bit in there. Let's pull down the room as well in the parallel bus because there's a lot of cymbals in the room. Ride cymbal, hi-hat. So now we've got a lot less cymbals. We've got a lot more controlled kind of sound from the kit going into this heavy compression bus. And we're hearing it with this compressor on. Now, what else I'm hearing is that the kick is a little bit too loud. So let's bring down the kick. So we're going to mix the kick a little quieter than our normal drum mix going into this heavy parallel compression. Now that's kind of what I'm looking for, is that nice heavy crack on the snare drum. Maybe a little more kick. And often like a heavy compression like this, it's going to react more to the low frequencies. There's more energy in low frequencies. So often I'll end up turning down the kick because the compressor is going to react more to the low frequencies of the kick drum than from, the rest of the kit and the snare. So I like to bring down the kick a bit, kind of even that off so we get the same kind of punch and smack from the kick and the snare. So this is good. It sounds really punchy. We've got some nice attack on the drums here, but we're not quite done yet, because basically what we've been left here is with like really spiky transients. You can see how like on the kick and snare, this meter is just like jumping up, huge spikes. And that's not what we want in the end. What we want is to have like a really fat, solid drum sound that is loud and holds a lot of weight in the mix, but still has that punch. So how we're going to achieve that is saturation. So there are so many saturation options. I got to admit, I'm a little biased because I helped create this plugin. So let's check out what Escalator does. Now, notice what this is doing. This is adding some subtle saturation, some subtle like distortion. It's also doing some subtle clipping. So you'll notice that these peaks, there's now like a ceiling on these peaks on the drums. Watch the meter. And you'll notice that even if you watch the peaks while this is bypass, we're spiking pretty high on the meters. When we put it in, the peak is actually lower. So we're actually getting less like actual level, but like the perceived volume that we hear is much bigger. Other options for this could be like a decapitator. I like for this use. You could try some other saturation too, but you don't want something that is like super mellow. You want something that's going to add a little bit of punch and edge to the sound. So now let's check out how this sounds when we mix it in with our regular drum bus. The regular bus sounds so weak now without it. Now that's pretty awesome. I think that's a huge difference. Let's check it out again. That's without the crush bus. Here's with. And we can maybe bring down a little less cymbals in there. And so now what you're left with is basically a fader that controls the amount of punch and intensity and impact that you want on your drums. So you can automate this throughout the song, make some parts hit harder, some parts pull back a little bit, and you just find that blend that gives you that extra impact and punch that you need while still maintaining the clarity and the separation of the cymbals and not getting this really big, distorted, kind of washy mess. Out. And then if you want to go really crazy with this, if you want a super aggressive drum sound, you could get more crazy with the compression or saturation. Like you could do something like Soundtoys Devil Lock. Let's check this out. But, again, if we're just using the regular drum bus here, there's no way you're going to get away with, using this kind of distortion on the drums. No way. That's horrible. So obviously we need a dedicated bus, custom mix for this crush bus. There we go. So there you go. This is something that I've been doing in my mixes for like literally 10 years. This is the signal chain I use pretty much every time. So you can literally just swipe this technique, swipe the signal chain, and you're going to get great results in your mixes too. And hey, if you're someone who is dead serious about getting pro caliber final mixes that don't sound embarrassing next to, your favorite pro records, this is something I've been doing for over 10 years for real bands and real labels, and I've helped thousands of engineers around the world do the same thing. And if that's what you want as well, to take your mixes from amateur to pro, something that actually competes in the real world, then the next step is to go and register for my free 7-part video series called The Full Stack Producer. So hit the link and you will be on your way to making the entire process from start to finish of producing a pro caliber label quality record crystal clear. So I'll see you over there.